Welcome, and thank you for joining our broadcast this morning. I'm going to be talking about the common good today. This is a phrase that you read about in the teachings of Agni Yoga. And when I was thinking about, this phrase, the common good, my gosh, how much it is needed in the world today, to practice the common good. And also, for some of us that really strive to put this practice into our day-to-day life, sometimes it seems like we're swimming upstream, against the flow. And yet, we must do so. The beauty of Agni Yoga is that it takes us into the depth to understand what the common good is. So this morning I'm going to be talking about 7 points or guidelines that if you're a practitioner of Agni Yoga, you're going to particularly want to begin to put into your day-to-day life. But even if you're not an Agni Yoga practitioner, it doesn't mean you can't practice it, because it is so powerful and so beautiful and so specific to inspiring those in your environment to practice the common good without even knowing that they are practicing it. So, the common good is a standard found in the life of an Agni Yoga student and is also exemplified in the lives of true disciples of Christ and hierarchy. What is interesting to me, it also has another term, which is the law of living ethics. The higher law of cosmos. It's the higher law of cosmos. The direction in which the cosmic magnet draws us. So we can see already that this phrase, which, these are words that are not esoteric words, they're uncommon words, but the definition is very beautiful, very refined, and of high quality. The higher law of cosmos, the direction in which the cosmic magnet draws us, and to which we must strive. So the common good is also known as the law of living ethics. This tells us that there is a distinct relationship between the common good and the cosmic magnet. So what is the cosmic magnet? This is certainly something that we need to know about if we're being drawn toward it, right? The cosmic magnet is the center of the universe. Through its impulses, through its sphere of influence, the cosmic magnet gives us a way in which we can almost magically manifest heaven on earth. So really think about this. Through the impulses of the cosmic magnet, through its influence, this is how we can bring or manifest heaven on earth. So the common good and manifesting heaven on earth work together. In other words, it is a contact point. The cosmic magnet is a contact point for us between heaven and earth. In the dark, here's a story. In the dark, the yogi places a strong magnet or a chip of a body from the far off worlds above the crown of a pupil's head. And the yogi asks, "What do you feel?" Usually the first answer is negative. Well, I don't feel anything. The yogi says, that's not true. There cannot be such meagerness of vigilance that a man or a human being would be so insensitive. But the pupil insists, I cannot feel anything. Well, it is not true. You only fear to express the sensation and say what you see. After a long silence, the pupil says, well, perhaps I do feel cold, and sees something like a flashing of stars. The yogi says, why do people say seemingly or perhaps when they see and feel? It is only by decisive affirmation does psychic energy grow. Thus, one can increase one's receptivity because above us there are always magnetic currents and the radiance that indicates the flower of space. The cosmic magnet is the sun behind the sun. Now we know that there are 3 suns. Esoterically, we know this, that there are 3 suns. And these 3 suns give light to the universe. See, this is so simple. It doesn't have to be so cosmic and way beyond our, imagination, because we see light. So what we're being told in the teaching, that these 3 suns give light to the universe. So we have the physical sun is one, the sun behind the sun is another, and then we have the spiritual or the central spiritual sun. The cosmic magnet is the fundamental force and property of cosmic fire. See, it's all tied together. The cosmic magnet is a twofold force. It draws us toward what? What does this cosmic magnet do? What does the twofold force mean? The first is that it draws us toward unfoldment. In other words, it inspires, it initiates, it causes hope and desire, which results in unfoldment, refinement, and perfectment. Unfoldment, refinement, and perfectment. Also, it enhances a spiritual power that is consistent with its purity and refinement. And here's a point to consider. The temple of humanity is going to be filled or built with the fire of the cosmic magnet. So see, if we can just kind of recap here, if the temple of humanity is going to be built with the fire of the cosmic magnet, we are going to see cycles of events and situations where humanity is going to unfold as a result of the power of light that is influencing the whole of the universe through these 3 suns and through the fire of the cosmic magnet. So unfoldment, refinement. Oh, there's so much we could talk about with refinement. Because why? There's so much coarseness going on in the world today that it's almost impossible to miss it and want the opposite, right? We want our leaders to be refined. We want our leaders to have an unfolding process occur of their higher nature to where intuitively they will be making better decisions. And those decisions will not be based on personal opinion or doctrine or dogma or lower elements, but from the cosmic magnet, the heart of the universe. And through this process of unfoldment and refinement, we're going to see what's called in the teaching perfectment. What is perfectment? It is realizing the potential of what humanity as a whole has ahead of it, as well as the leadership, the potential, the possibility of the leaders as they unfold, as they refine themselves and manifest their true self. It will be those members of humanity, its disciples and initiates, who have undergone this soul unfoldment of striving and perfectment. These are the people who are going to be carrying the energy of the common good into the construction of this temple of humanity. Can you even imagine the temple of humanity? Or think about it? Hopefully now we can. There's a story about the mother of a great leader who dreamed that her son would become a great benefactor of humanity. However, the son could see no reason why he should immerse himself in the problems of human affairs, simply because of his mother's dream. And so he turned to a life of meditation. The true cause for this was because deeply rooted in his own past, when over many lives he had developed a love for and dedication to meditation, while neglecting self-sacrificing work for the good of others. You see, this is an important point. I'm going to interrupt myself in this story, that it is the old age, it's a Piscean age where meditators would isolate themselves from humanity, from the world, from their families. And they would go into these dank caves where every once in a while, their disciples would bring them food and water and make sure they're okay. But that's no longer the case. And yet, this mother's boy was still so ingrained in the pattern of his love for and dedication for meditation. It was not, he was not going against his mother's wishes, but his instinct was stronger. In spite of his refined consciousness, this man did not realize that it was not his mother's dream that was urging him on toward this work, but while in this subtle world, he had realized to what extent he was unable to harmonize the abilities given to him. And so he decided in his new incarnation that he would dedicate his entire life to the service of humanity. So you see, this was before he came into this life, this incarnation. So as he was coming into incarnation, this is typically what happens, is that we are given part of the records of our soul of the purpose of this incarnation and what we are to do. And he was given this directive. But he didn't remember it. So we have a living example of a highly refined individual who blamed his mother's dream for motivating him toward what should have been the true purpose of his life. It often happens that people who fulfill the tasks that they themselves have chosen become discontent with their own decisions. The thinker often used to say, "Let us search the past. Perhaps we shall find the lost keys." And I remember one of the stories that we read about in the history of the many original members and those that were drawn to Agni Yoga and the Rourkes. They didn't remember why or what the purpose was of drawing them into this beautiful, so-called newly established teaching. So they were there for a little while, and then they left because they didn't remember their purpose. I find that extraordinary. So as the disciple responds to the magnetic impulse of his soul, of his master in ashram, new groups, new schools of thought and organizations are going to come into being and will be constructed. Thus, the temple of humanity will be created. The magnetic currents of the cosmic magnet are manifested in the creativeness within the chalice. Let me read this again. The magnetic currents of the cosmic magnet, the magnetic currents, are manifested in the creativeness within the chalice, and are especially found within the labors and creative actions of a third degree initiate, and also the adept. Striving and self-determination alongside expansion of consciousness is going to find disciples and initiates in harmony with this higher law, the common good. The temple of the cosmic magnet on Earth will be the magnet that we are going to build for humanity. It's going to be recognized in the form of groups who are going to create the temple. Agni Yoga gives us some guidelines, 7 guidelines about the qualities that will help us seek the common good. So I'll give you the 7 qualities and then talk about it. The first is constancy of striving. Sort of reminds me of Winston Churchill that said, never give up, never, 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 right? So Agni Yoga, one of these guidelines of the 7 is saying constant striving. The next is the ability of containment. This is very esoteric, and I'll explain it in a minute. The ability of containment, for poor is he who denies, but the seeker of truth is worthy to work for general good. So this is relating to the chalice. The ability of containment. The third, the ability to labor, because the majority do not know the value of time. The majority look forward to retirement, right? And hope that they become financially stable, that they can retire before 65. But that's not the path of the common good. Number 4, the desire to help without prejudice and without imposition. Number 5, renouncement of personal property and the acceptance for safekeeping of the fruit or talents of the creativeness of others. And actually, this is something I'm going to be talking about in about 3 weeks, about the importance of protecting, safekeeping the talents and creativity of other people. Number 6 is the expulsion of fear. And number 7, the display of vigilance amidst darkness. And we are certainly there right now. So this is one of the guidelines to practicing the common good, display of vigilance amidst darkness. Here's some questions. As a practitioner of the common good, are you sowing these 7 seeds of common good, of the common good? Are you working for the general good of humanity? Is the service you are engaged in helping to build the temple for humanity? So there are 3 questions you can answer. Okay, so let's go back to these 7 points. The first was constancy of striving. We must have a goal to strive toward, a dream, a vision, a desire. Striving is to reach a level of your dream that you have always had in your mind. See, in the case of that young boy, his mom was sustaining that dream for him. But he forgot what he learned before he came into incarnation, and the instinct, see, to dedicate himself to meditation was stronger than the revelation he was given or the purpose of his life that his mom kept trying to remind him of. So striving is to reach a level of your dream that you have always had in your mind. If you reach a level of satisfaction, then your striving is going to cease. This is why we are told, don't ever give up, don't ever retire. Don't ever give up on your dream, on your vision. And even if you've attained a certain level of achievement with the manifestation of that dream, don't stop there. Because it is bigger than that, greater than that. The interesting thing is to realize that if you do not strive, if you do not advance, you're going to go backward. We are either in a daily process of regenerating ourselves or in a daily process of degenerating. There is no place we can stand and say, I am going to stay here. I do not want to do this or that. I am stuck here. You may think that you are stuck, but you eventually see that the energies and forces and different influences are pulling you down because you are not advancing. See, this is how the dark forces come in, so like little worms. We don't even know they're there. You know, they're underneath the ground, and they start pulling us more and more into matter. So we are not really stuck. We are sliding downward if this happens. There are 2 kinds of energies in the universe. One of the energy is pulling us toward the cosmic magnet, and the other energy is pushing us away, pulling us and pushing us. So we must be in a constant state of striving so that we can progress. Constant striving, what does this do? It creates a spiritual tension in our life. Constant striving. Tension is focusing your spiritual energies and utilizing these energies for some great purpose. Striving does not mean to be fanatical and running all the time to keep busy. It's not that. In fact, as we are putting together and translating and editing the words of the Master to the Rourkes, particularly Helena Rourke, he kept reminding her, be sure to rest. And I can't begin to tell you how many times he repeated that phrase, be sure to rest. So constant striving does not mean not to take care of yourself and not to rest. It's just the opposite. We must keep spiritual tension in our lives to utilize these energies for some great purpose. The greater our tension, the greater will our opportunity be to reach the goal of our life. Energy is created as a result of spiritual tension. So there's a little axiom. The more energy we have, the greater we can serve and build the temple of humanity. Number 2, the ability of containment. For poor is he who denies, but the seeker of truth is worthy to work for general good. So what is meant by the term containment? Typically, when we think of the term containment, we think of a container, right? Right. Such as a jar. But in this case, it is referring to the chalice. So when you read in the Agni teachings this term container, ask yourself, is this referring in some way to the chalice? The chalice contains all that is good and wonderful. It contains our good deeds, virtues, the service of many lifetimes, all evolutionary activities that help to build the temple. And what is so beautiful is that as our chalice becomes activated, it is also activating greater chalices. We must be willing and inspired to selflessly share all that we have and all that is contained in the chalice, and eliminate the forces of separatism, prejudice, greed, malice, ego, and vanity. We must serve in beauty and unity and through the law of synthesis. The law of synthesis, remember, is the law of the new age. All that is contained in this law must serve what? The common good. In using this quality while striving for the common good, we must search for the beautiful in another. We must unleash the creative potentials in others. We must find a way to create a synthesis in all that we do. If we are serving the common good in education, whatever we do must be in harmony with science and religion and finance. Science, religion, and finance. If we deny one of these fields and choose one over the other, then we are not serving the keynote of synthesis, but rather separation. It is like choosing one child over another, or one religion over another. Number 3, the ability to labor, because the majority do not know the value of time. Master M tells us that labor is the cornerstone of our existence, that labor is the crown of light. Master M tells us that the greatest method to shorten time is dedicated labor. We can attest to that. If you've been on a 3-day hiatus, let's say, or let's say that you've retired, your days become longer and longer and longer to the point where you can't even remember what day it is. So this is why Master M is saying the greatest method to shorten time is dedicated labor. In dedicated labor, we don't have a measurement of time. We may work 10 hours, and when the work is finished, we think, gosh, I feel like I've only worked for an hour. Where did those other 9 hours go? What is so beautiful is to realize that labor is not conducted by oneself, but it is a team effort. Just like today, creating this morning's Sunday broadcast is a presentation of team effort, a labor of love, and a part of the cornerstone of the existence of the group soul or group work. Both. A great labor requires teamwork. Today's team, the team that makes these broadcasts, makes these broadcasts possible, is composed of co-workers who not only have the awareness of the goal, the knowledge, the skill, and endurance, but also they are also enthusiastic, they are self-sacrificing, and they are highly dedicated to the goal. The desire to help without prejudice and without imposition. Prejudice has no room when serving the common good. To serve with prejudice indicates the person may have ulterior motives in their actions. They may cast aspersions about the vision or ideas of the leader that they are serving, and cast these dispersions among their co-workers in the group. A server of prejudice may be a spy. A prejudiced person may have unfavorable opinions or feeling some kind of feelings beforehand that ultimately begin to, like these worms that edge into the work of the group, that begins to divide and separate and conquer. Number 5, renouncement of personal property and the acceptance for the safe keeping of the fruit of the creativeness of others. If we pay attention, we can learn a lot about the animal soul, which is referenced in Agni Yoga. The animal soul, which makes up a good portion of humanity through their domestic pets. Particularly if there are several pets in their home, they give us a good example. For example, I have a little Sheltie. Her name is Maggie. A puppy that behaves in a way that says, what is mine is mine. And what is yours is mine too. This is the opposite of renouncement of personal property and reflects the behaviors of the consciousness of the animal soul of humanity. We are the custodians of what has been given to us to make our lives a little easier, or given to us to use for others in service to the general welfare of others. For example, education. Education is mental property. Our education was a gift to increase our skills in such a way that those skills are now being used to better serve the common good. Some use their education as a way to increase their station in life for personal power. But for the disciple or initiate, this person will use their studies as a means to help humanity to advance. Do we have gratitude for what life has given to us? Do we strive to take good care of our personal property, our physical, emotional, and mental and spiritual property, our car, our home, our animals, our children, our health, the teachings, the books of the teachings? Do we take good care of them? What about renouncement of our time and energy and matter? Those who live as a soul gradually show signs of renunciation. They renounce time, energy, and matter for the sake of others. In time, we are going to learn how we can use all that we have for the common good of all. We are all stewards of the teachings. We must protect the integrity and the purity of the teaching. We must protect the integrity and purity of the teaching, so in doing, we prevent its disintegration and its loss. This is why we ask others not to paraphrase the teaching as if they are quoting. Another way to protect the fruit of the creativeness of others is to protect the time of creative people. Let them create. Give them their time of inspirational silence. When you work in an office of a creative person, if their office space is free from people, try not to assume that they are free for your bidding. They may be creating. Another way to protect the creative fruits of others is to encourage them to work with new ideas, new concepts, new beauties, rather than to stay immersed in the ideas of others. Let them create a new model without your own prejudice or doubt. If they are lacking a foundation of knowledge, then send them out into the world to gain the knowledge. Then challenge them to surpass what others have done. Number 6, expulsion of fear. How can we serve the common good if we have fear in our heart or mind? In the book Brotherhood, it says, the neophytes of the Brotherhood are tested upon fear. A most hopeless situation is given to them, and one waits to see what solution will be chosen by the tested one. Very few will think, what is there to be afraid of, since the Brotherhood stands behind us? Precisely such a premise liberates one from fear and brings to light a free, beneficial decision. And that's from paragraph 580 of the book Brotherhood. The servants of darkness dispatch first of all fear. The servants of darkness dispatch fear first of all in order to confound the spirit. An educated heart will firstly eradicate fear and recognize the harm. Thus, the heart is the armor of light which will put to shame the cunning of darkness. And that's from the book Hierarchy, paragraph 558. Since the onset of the pandemic, the world has been sorely tested with various fears, And with each fear comes a loss of energy, confidence, and sense of future. The teaching is about future. It reminds us that to be placed in a seemingly hopeless situation brings opportunity to recognize how the brotherhood stands behind it, behind us, to recognize that they send us solutions by inspiration or through messengers. And the last one, number 7, the display of vigilance amidst darkness. The Master M says, in the days of contentment, our vigilance becomes obscured. Once a disciple becomes absorbed in pleasure and happiness, their vigilance sleeps and darkness consumes them. So, when the warrior for the common good sleeps, the dark forces are free to pour their destructive influences into the person or into the group, causing much suffering for their victims. When a person passes through the stage of being an average person, they then become a point of observation. When they pass through this stage, then they become a person of interest or observation of the dark forces. They see a future danger in you. These dark forces are mainly those human beings who are awake in the astral plane with all their earthbound desires and inclinations. They want to see the continuation of a world that will give them total satisfaction after their reincarnation. But there's also another reason why the disciple must be vigilant in the darkness. If the disciple is an Agni yogi, they have made themselves so purified that they are now extremely sensitive physically, emotionally, and mentally. They start to pick up on the thoughts and emotions of others, and if they are not vigilant, their solar plexus, digestion, and health will degenerate. It is a dark night for the yogi. However, there is hope. Vigilance. Vigilance in this case means active meditation, prayer, and contemplation, and the knowledge that they are shielded by hierarchy and their master. So that's Agni Yoga, the common good.